welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. Every review is positive because I don't listen to music I don't like. So today I'm going to be reviewing an album by OK Kaya. And before I get to the music, I want to talk a little bit about misogyny. And it's kind of misogyny in a different kind. It's not straight up women hating, like, oh, I hate women. It's a little bit more societal. It's a little bit more about being able to take people seriously despite superficial interference. So this week, there's been a lot of good albums, but there have been a lot of good albums that I would say are sort of borderline. There's like maybe 5 or 6 records that are fighting for my tens of views for a review today, you know? So I've been listening to a lot, and sometimes what helps to make the decision is I'll look up just the most basic, bare bones biographical information, right? I'm not like reading Pitchfork reviews or Bandcamp or anything, but just like what pops up when you type their name into Google, right? So I liked OK Kaya. I listened to a couple of her tracks and they seemed pretty good. But like the first thing, and it's all over the place, is that she's also a model. And I immediately discounted her because of that. I didn't know that's why. I just sort of put it in my head, and then I went around and instead I reviewed Sister Mary Elephant, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sarah Mary Hardwick on my video, which is another female singer who writes her own music, and it's also vaguely unsettlingly sexual at times, but based on her bio, she's not a model. And I think on some level, I discounted and discredited Kaya, OK Kaya, just because I figured, well, if she's a model, then she probably doesn't have anything really to say. She's probably just some super blessed person who's been given everything and gets to traipse through life with everything easy. This is a horrible, horrible thought to have existing inside my head. And it's misogyny of the greatest degree, because to assume that someone's life is easier for a reason such as that is to not really understand the systems of widespread societal injustice that create these kinds of conditions. So, fortunately, while I was reviewing albums for my second review this week, I said, why is it that this bothers me? And what I did, I actually printed something out for you to see. This is what pops up on your phone when you type in OK Kaya. These are all of the headlines there, right? And I think you'll kind of see a pretty consistent theme in the way that she's described and the way that she's talked about. OK Kaya makes sex jams for people with depression and yeast infections. OK Kaya writes pop songs for your saddest, most honest sex tape. Basically, every review somehow touches on something sexy and weird and ties it into this desire that you have, sort of your internal desire for something sexy and dark. And I think that this music actually transcends that. I know this music transcends it. It's much more than just something odd and titillating made by somebody who won the genetic lottery. So I want to actually treat it with some seriousness, because I think that's what it deserves. She writes all of her own music. She produces almost every track. She produces several of the songs completely by herself. She writes the lyrics and she composes the music. So whatever it is that she's saying, she's not just some product of, some Instagram influencer and then some producer shows up and says, here, sing these words. And all these stereotypes that come flowing out of my mouth and just exist in my brain, I don't say to reinforce them. I say them to point them out and say, this is a bias that I have, and let's explode it. Do you have the same bias? I think you do. You jerk. I'm kidding. Okay. So, in general, what's nice about this is it's a nice mixture of sort of electronic bedroom music. Jesus. When I say bedroom music, I don't mean sex music. This isn't boudoir music. I mean bedroom music like someone making music in their bedroom, right? So, in general, you sort of have 2 different kinds of bedroom music. You have guitar bedroom music, and then you have keyboard and computer, and she mixes up both. She plays guitar, I believe, and plays the keyboard, and that creates a nice sort of dynamism to the record. It never feels too samey. She sings well, but doesn't over-sing. In the beginning, I was a little bit afraid it was going to be too husky, too, Lana Del Light. But that isn't really the way that it is. It is very dreamlike. I think that's very intentional, kind of sleepy. Most songs develop, but in a very subtle way. So it's not like the parts change drastically, but things are layered in. And really, I would say the biggest musical analog I would find would be the Twin Peaks soundtrack, Angelo Badalamenti. Like the kind of feeling that soundtrack can give you, the sort of sexy, sort of dreamlike, ineffable quality of Badalamenti's music is in this OK Kaya album. I should mention the title is Watch the Liquid Pour Itself Out. I think that's Fiona Apple's influence, just attractive female singers with ridiculously long album titles. I don't know. I would say the songs vary in between a kind of like someone alone in a bedroom making music, and then sort of like a house pop disco feel. And it's not really clear why one song is one way and the other is the other, but that's the way that she goes. And in general, the tracks are often like a 50s feel or the house feel. So it goes in between those things, guitar, keyboard, 50s and house, and it's quite nice. The best trademark I would say that she has, and if I had anything to say to her as a producer, which I don't, would be to emphasize this thing that she does where she plays a lot with discord. She plays a lot with things that are slightly out of tune, a little bit warped, and it makes her music much stronger. This is usually the way that her songs develop, so in the beginning they're all harmony, and then eventually there's some nice discord that comes in, something just a little bit off that creates that good feeling. Another trademark of this album are just the sentence that kept on coming to my head was, what is she going on about? Like, her lyrics are really weird, but not weird like, I am a fish made out of angry termites. It's not like that, right? that was stream of consciousness. Please comment if you like my song, because I think that's a good song. It's more that like her lyrics are adjacent to something logical. Like they sort of make emotional sense, but not rational sense. I wouldn't say that she's incoherent, but poetically obscure. Most of the songs seem to be about sex and relationships, or about her relationship to herself, but I'd say that's where she lives. And I'll talk about a couple of the exceptions to this. The greatest exception is the track Psych Ward, which is very clearly just about being in a psych ward. And this is sort of like it's almost like Crimson and Clover. I think she actually just stole the guitar chords just from Crimson and Clover. But it's a really important song, I think. And it seems like it's from personal experience. Like if I were to tell you, like, how would you prove that you've been in a psych ward? And you've never been in one, I bet you'd come up with a bunch of little details that sound good, but aren't really there. The song starts with, in the psych ward, you can peel an orange however you please. That sounds like experience. And this is this is a great example, this whole track, of the just slightly warped musicality. And it's really quite nice. In a similar way, the track Overstimulate just takes the guitars from Sweet Jane by Velvet Underground and just puts them into her own song. I think maybe one chord's off. But it doesn't really matter. Really nice, dreamy vocals, multiple layers. This is the point, this is about halfway through the album, where I decided that I really liked it quite a bit. Maybe the best lyrics is where she says, you wake up, you say good morning the way I say good night. Are you awake? That's just great. That's a great observation, that like some people say, are you awake, right before going to bed, and other people say, are you awake, right as they wake up to their partner or the person that they're with. The chorus builds really nicely. It's my second favorite track on the album. What's nice is it has these like heys in the background. It has a really nice layered chorus with just these, it's really hard to describe. It's very hard to describe. It is like a dream, now the more that I think about it, because I can't really describe it to you, but it all sort of makes sense. But it's not trying to be like wacky and weird. Sorry, my printer started putting my notes on two sides. I'm saving the environment, one page at a time. I would say the best track on the album is called Insert Generic Name, and I'm going to play it for you. This will give you a great example of how the guitar works, what her voice sounds like, and the bizarreness of her lyrics, but also the quality of her lyrics. I'm putting in my password, Kanye 2024. All right. Okay, yes, Mark has written. No, stop. But no, I don't need a reminder for my medications. Okay. Here is OK Kaya's Insert Generic Name. Oops.
Stacy, it really sucks to be your girlfriend. Although you're a prolific boyfriend, I'm suddenly the center of resentment in your harem. And this ain't high school.
So, yeah, this lyric, Stacy, you're such, it sucks to be your girlfriend, great lyric, but you're such a prolific boyfriend, and now I'm the center of resentment in your harem. Clearly she's living through something. And the song develops really nicely, has the drums come in, the little bells, the ding, and the whole time you feel just a little bit warped, like someone is like accidentally leaning on the tape as it's playing, and it's like just a little bit. The track Guttural Sounds is one I want to study the lyrics for. I do teach a class on women and gender studies, although it's about French women, so wouldn't really count here. She's from New York and Norway. I don't know how she's from both places, but when you look it up, it says she's from New Jersey, she's from New York, and she's from Norway. I'll get to that later. But in the song, she says she can't wait to be 30-something. And it seems that maybe she just wants to grow old. Maybe she's tired of the tyranny of beauty and youth. I don't know. Maybe she wants to be taken seriously by jerks like me who dismiss her. I don't know. Maybe that's what she's saying. Maybe it's not. That has some great 80s synthesizer style hits that serve that function of slightly warping something, slightly distorting it. The track Popcorn Heart has the most Kaya lyric on the whole album. I'm just going to call a Kaya lyric something which sort of makes sense, but doesn't really. She says her heart has ducklings. So, what does that mean? What does it mean? My heart has ducklings. I sort of get it. But what does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know. But I sort of get it. The track Hallelujah, Hallelujah Me is maybe the most overtly sexual song, but again, it's like a weird dreamlike song about thinking you're going to die on a plane and having a fantasy. It's like sexy and sexless at the same time. Very weird, but very well written and a nice ethereal song. There's a very sweet track put in the middle of all this, which doesn't really fit in with the rest of it. It's called Symbiosis, and it's about like when we make love, everything turns green. And I'm starting to think that maybe the obscurity is a way of blocking her from truer emotions. I don't know. Like maybe if she like leaned into this sort of more, because there's a whole layer of irony and humor to this album, to the titles, to everything the way that it's done. It feels like maybe she's protecting herself and not like letting her real self out. Maybe this song is just letting that out. I don't know. There is a track in Norwegian, or I assume it's in Norwegian, which is nice. And that's where the Badalamenti vibe really set in. And it developed really nicely and was slightly out of tune. The album ends with another highlight. Now this I have to read the title. Zero Interaction Ramen Bar. So I don't know what that means, but I get the idea. I can imagine a ramen bar with zero interaction. And she talks about her parasite blushing, and it's this great ending that takes it off on the weirder side of her music. It ends there, but it's a very fitting ending. Speaking of fitting ending, as I was leaving the gym with my wife, I know we work out together now. We're one of those couples, so I'm sorry. But we were like leaving, and I filled up my coffee, and just as I left, I looked to the right and I saw a television. And on the television, there was a banal CBS or NBC morning show, the picture of a woman in her mid-50s, and it said, Kathy Ireland to release her first novel. So Kathy Ireland was a popular model when I was a teenager. And there it is, you know. She's to release her first novel. And I saw it, and the first thing I thought, after all this thinking about having to take Kaya seriously and not dismiss her just because she is considered to be a beautiful woman by the forces in society that make these decisions, after all of this anti-misogyny programming, I see Kathy Ireland writes a novel, and I thought, that's got to be good. So there you go. I'm trying to learn, and I hope I do. So until next time, for Franz Kafka and Kathy Ireland, there's the camera.